always sang this song, God has something to say. God has something to say. Listen, listen. Pay great attention, for God has something to say. And that song is so rooted in theology because God is constantly speaking. Somebody say, God is constantly speaking. Touch your side, you. God is constantly speaking. So, we didn't just sing rubbish, we sang theology. Because if you look hard enough in nature, you might as well just catch God speaking. God is constantly looking to teach a lesson. Constantly looking to show us something. One time God arrested a prophet known as Jeremiah. God said, Jeremiah, I want to teach you a lesson. Jeremiah said, what lesson? He said, no, go to the potter's house. If you go to the potter's house, I'll show you something. Because God is constantly speaking. God is constantly teaching. One time God ran into a lazy man, the writer of Proverbs called the sluggard. God said, go to the ant. Ant? Go to the ant, you sluggard. So God can even use ants to teach. If you look hard enough, you will see God trying to speak to us. It was David who said, creation reveals your glory. God is constantly speaking. I think we can also find God speaking on a football pitch. I think if God can speak through an ant, if God can send a prophet to the potter's house where they play with clay, and God says, go there, I want to tell you something. If God can look at a lazy man, a sluggard, and say, listen, go to the ant, I've got a lesson to teach you where the ant. If the writer of Psalms and Proverbs said that creation reveals your glory, I'm quite sure that this football obsession that we have today, if we look hard in a football game, we might just see God have a lesson for us. And the game I'm interested in is in the Liverpool versus AC Milan game played a Champions League final. So before we get into that game and the lessons God wants to teach us, hold it, I won't ask you to play it. So I want to preach a sermon. A sermon from that Champions League final between Liverpool and AC Milan. A sermon about, we're going to look at the superpowers of success. What are the things you need to be successful? In a sermon I've entitled, The Miracle of Istanbul. Somebody said the miracle of Istanbul. Before we play that clip, I want to read my text. And then we'll play that clip and we get into, if God can speak to us through an ant, right? If God can ask you to go to the potter's house because I have something to teach you. If the psalmist said that creation reveals your glory, then I'm quite sure that God can use a Champions League final to teach us some live lessons. So I'm preaching a sermon this morning, The Superpowers of Success, a sermon I've entitled, The Miracle of Istanbul, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7 to 9. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. Here's the text. We are afflicted on every side, crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed. Father, I want you to speak to us through this game. Show us some lessons from that final that will have ramifications for our Christian walk and our life in general. In Jesus' name, and all God's people said, Amen. A quick summary of that goal. At halftime, Liverpool were losing 3-0 to a brilliant AC Milan side that included legends like Maldini, Pirlo, Kaka, Shevchenko. I didn't even know that Crespo was in that team. Chelsea was to buy Crespo down the road. You know, AC Milan seemed unstoppable. They had dominated the first half. Apparently, at the end of the first half, in AC Milan dressing room, they were already popping champagne. You know, don't ever think the war is over when it isn't. For some of you here, God has a prophetic word to tell you. Tell your enemy it's not over. I might be 3-0 down, but it's not over. They were already popping champagne. They were already, I'm telling you this, we're not making this up. The game's not finished. They were ahead first half 3-0, and they were already popping champagne. I'm sure Satan somewhere is already popping champagne about your life. Already saying it's over. Turn to your neighbor and say it's not over until it is. In fact, turn to your neighbor and say it's not over until God says it is. So you know the story. At the end of the day, Liverpool won that game. We've just seen the clip. The question then is, Pastor Emmanuel, what are the lessons? Are there biblical lessons? Are there lessons in that game that can help you and I do life? Are there lessons in that game that can help you and I do leadership? Pastor, I'm a businessman. It looks like I'm 3-0 down halftime. Pastor, I'm a ministry. It looks like I'm 3-0 down in ministry. Pastor, I'm in school and it looks like I'm 3-0 down in school. Pastor, are there lessons from that Champions League final that I can crystallize off the pitch and use it in my work? Are there things I can learn? If God can speak through an ant, if God can speak in the potter's house, is it possible that God can speak to me even from the football pitch? How is it that one can be 3-0 down first half and still win? How many people can relate to what I'm saying? How is it that one can be 3-0 down? You know, Good Friday, Jesus was 3-0 down. But Satan didn't know that Easter Sunday is coming. So I don't know who you are. Maybe you're 3-0 down. Maybe you're 3-0 down in that marriage, in that business, in that ministry. Maybe your enemies are already celebrating, popping champagne. Maybe your enemies are already saying it's over. One time, David's enemies, David spoke to God. He said, how are those who are against me? Many are those who say of me, there is no help for me from the Lord. But thou, O God, are my shield. Maybe they're saying it's over for you. How does a team get to the halftime 3-0 down and still win the game? Pastor, are there principles from that game that can help me in my business? Are there principles in that game that can help me in my healthcare profession? Are there things I could draw from? Pastor, I feel like I'm 3-0 down in my ministry. Are there things I need? How did Liverpool do it? I wish it was Chelsea that did it, but it's Liverpool. It's not a problem. I can learn from the devil. They call them red devils. I can learn from the devils too. Are there things I can pull from are there principles from that pitch that even a child of God can say, I can use this principle in my life. I could use this principle in my ministry. So we're going to look at the superpowers of success. Somebody say superpowers of success. If you're going to be super successful, are there superpowers that you need to have? Are there things that you need to have in order to be successful, whether it's in life or whether it's in ministry, whether it's in the secular or whether it is in the solemn, whether it's in just general, or whether it's whatever it is in life? Are there specific things, principles that we see on that football pitch that even a Christian can apply? Pastor, what is the first superpower that I need if I'm going to be successful in what God has given me? The first one and the first superpower we see on that pitch is the superpower of perseverance. They're all going to be P's. Okay, well, some of them will be P's so you can remember. Somebody said the superpower of perseverance. There are three 3-0 down at halftime. Listen, that game's as good as over. They get into second time and they're still playing like it's not over. They're still persevering. This is a matter of resilience. And let me tell you, it doesn't matter if God has given you a word. It doesn't matter what God has told you. Oh, Pastor, I saw in a vision, God said this, God said that, that's fine. But the purpose of God will be tested. And if you're going to pass that test, you must possess the superpower of what? Perseverance. You're not exempted from it. Even Jesus had to persevere. Remember Jesus in the garden. Here's Jesus in heaven. God says you're going to go down there and die for the world. Not a problem. Isaiah kind of gave us a picture. God said, who shall I send and who shall go for us? Okay, in that picture it was Isaiah. But that was a picture of Jesus. Who shall I send? Who shall go for us? He turns up here. He's in the Garden of Eden. Things are going bad now. In fact, he even prayed the prayer. Say, Father, if it's possible, take this cup away from me. But you know what? Not my will, but your will be done. I'm going to go through it anyway. I'm going to go through it anyway. The salvation you and I enjoy today happened because one man refused to give up. One man refused to quit. One man refused to abandon the project. One man refused to abandon that marriage. One man refused to abandon that ministry. One man refused to abandon that church. One man, oh my God. But so you are not going to, anything you see that is successful today, there's someone who refused to quit. Somebody said, I'm not going to quit. Everything you're enjoying today came because someone refused to quit. The tungsten lamp. Thomas Edison. 1,000+ experiment that failed. And he continued to experiment until you and I can have electricity. Everything you enjoy today, you're enjoying because someone somewhere said, I ain't giving up. I ain't quitting. I might be 3-0 down at halftime, but this game is not over. Turn to your neighbor and say, this game is not over. Cornerstone, this game is not over. So perseverance. Refuse to give up. It was Winston Churchill. You know Winston Churchill? They called Winston Churchill the best UK president of the 20th century. They did a poll. I would have voted for Winston anyway. If I didn't vote for Winston, I would have voted for Tony Blair. But Winston Churchill, the wartime, the one who fought Hitler, Hitler would have turned you and I into monkeys. That's his plans. You would have become monkeys. Churchill resisted Hitler. Went through a lot of things to defend United Kingdom. They voted Churchill as the best prime minister UK ever had. So one day Churchill, you know, he's an orator. You can't speak like Churchill. The guy is crazy. Have you heard him speak? The man can speak. So yeah, exactly. We'll fight in the air. We'll fight on the beaches. We'll fight on the sea. That's Winston Churchill. So they asked him to come and speak to the secondary school that he attended. Right? Come and speak to the guys in Eton. So he goes to speak to them. So the boys in Eton were waiting for Churchill to do some long speech. Everybody's thinking, what is Winston going to say? So Winston Churchill, he stands up. He picks up the microphone. He looks at these young people and he said, never, ever, ever, ever give up. And he drops the microphone. As far as Mr. Churchill is concerned, if there's one advice I'm going to give a young person, if there's one advice I'm going to give a young woman, a young man, a pastor, a newly wedded, if there's one advice, there are a billion advice I could give, but I could just give one advice. Churchill said the advice is to never, ever, ever, ever give up. He drops the microphone and he goes, and I give you that advice today. Never, ever give up. That's why they won that game. That's why they won that game. They turned up 3-0 down, and they probably heard Churchill's voice saying, with Stephen Gerrard, never, never, ever, ever give up. That victory would not have happened if they didn't have the superpower of perseverance. If you know what this church has been through, this church still standing because Pastor Mike won't give up. Because Pastor Harry, I posted something on the platform the other day. Igwe said, I don't know whether to cry or to laugh. I say, in my mind, I'm saying, cry, Igwe. Let's even see you cry for once. Cry, let's see you cry for. Cry, Igwe, cry me a river. Cry me a river. This church standing today because there are a bunch of people here who have said, Pastor, we're not going to give up. We're not going to give up. Pastor Dixon, we're not going to give up. There are people who don't even attend. I have who go in his house supporting and saying, we will never give up. You know, if you give up, it finishes. You see, the human spirit is not defeated when things go bad. The human spirit is defeated when you give up. You see, it's when you give up that everything goes. So they won that victory because they possess the superpower of perseverance. The superpower of perseverance. So let's kind of go deeper in that perseverance. But I will come out again, the other superpowers. You say, Pastor, for a Christian, what are the sources of the Christian's perseverance? Pastor, how do I, your question will be, Pastor, okay, I know perseverance is needed. If I'm going to be 3-0 down at halftime in my marriage and win at the end. Oh, somebody say we win at the end. Listen, I don't know who you are, but I can tell you prophetically, we win at the end. It might not look like it now. We might look like, well, Gideon, we win at the end. We win at the end. So you may ask, okay, Pastor, okay, if perseverance is a superpower that I need to possess to win at the end, what are the sources of the Christian perseverance? The first source of the Christian perseverance is prayer. Prayer makes you indomitable. When Jesus was about quitting, what did he do? He called the three. He said, tarry with me. I'm looking like I want to quit. But I want to pray. So everyone who has persevered in the Bible, who didn't quit, go check them. They have a prayer life. In fact, sometimes in prayer you go to God and say, God, I want to quit. God, I want to quit. I want to quit that marriage. I want to quit. Do you know how many times I thought about quitting this ministry? K2 people showed me, I preach about K2 around the world. My American pastors, I said, you need to come to K2. Right? Come to K2. Come and learn ministry in K2. You know how many times I wanted to quit? Okay, Pastor, what is the source of Christian perseverance? Prayer. Prayer. Father, this marriage is too hard. I want to pray. Pastor, this ministry, I can't do. God, I can't do it again. Pray. God, help me. Prayer. 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 So the first source of Christian perseverance, the Christian who will not quit, the first source of his perseverance is prayer. Do you want to be indomitable? Prayer. Oh, the second one, let's give you a second source. I have 4 superpowers, but this one is, this perseverance is critical. Because when you quit, it's over. When you quit, it's over. If you hang in there, there's a chance. Gideon, when you quit, when you quit, it's over. We sang the song here that do not give up. What? Do not give up on God. Because God will not. The reason why God is saying don't give up is when you give up, then it's over. God can't do anything with someone who's giving up. If you've given up, he can't do anything. If you give up, he can't do anything. But even if you've got one leg and you're still there, and you're still there, and you're still there, God can do something with someone who is still there. It was a Kenyan marathon runner who went to run, I think it was a 10,000 marathon. As the marathon began, he had an injury, bad injury, and he could only now run with one leg. Me and you would do what? We'll stop. He kept running. And he got to the finishing line. And they asked him, they said, how did you keep running? He said, I didn't come to Kenya. I didn't come from Kenya 10,000 miles to these Olympics to give up. I didn't come to give. Turn to your neighbor and say, I didn't come to give up. Because it doesn't matter how much you've been battered. If you still stay in the game, God can do something. If you still stay in the game, God, you see, when you are out of the game, God can do anything. But if I'm still in the game, turn to your neighbor and say, stay in the game. Perseverance. So the first source of perseverance is prayer. Oh, the second one is the prophetic word. Paul told Timothy, he said, remember the prophetic words that have been given to you, through which you should do warfare. He said, you're going to fight battles, and what will help you in that battle is to remember what God has said about you. When God reminds me that this church is supposed to be successful, when God reminded me that this church is supposed to do something in K2, when it's time to give up, I go back to the prophetic word. I go back and say, God, you said though, it is written. It is written. When I start getting confused, I go back to what was written. And so you're not going to articulate the superpower of perseverance as a Christian. Part of articulating it is the prophetic word. What has God said about you? The prophetic word. I could tell you how many times I've wanted to quit, and I go back and hear, you're supposed to have an apostolic ministry. You have a hidden ministry. And you plant churches. I say, God, you plant churches, Emmanuel. Okay, all right. Let's try again. Let's try again. And then people say, Pastor, you're indomitable. And they never ask me the source of my indomitability. Let me tell you again. Let me ask you again. People say, Pastor, you're indomitable. But very few people have asked and said, Pastor, what is the source of your indomitability? The third source of Christian perseverance is the people. The people. The people. How many times have you wanted to quit? And a brother said, listen, you could make it, I see you make it. How many times have you wanted to quit, give up? And somebody says, Pastor Harry, I see something. The community, the people. When God says, do not forsake the gathering of brethren, that's what he meant. There's been times that we came to church not for Jesus. We came to church for the relationships we have in church. There are times when my faith has been lifted just seeing Pastor Mike. There are times I want to backslide, and I see Pastor Harry still soldiering on. I see his testimonies, the battles that he's won in the secret place. I'm thinking, if this guy can go through that and still serve God, why won't I serve God? So sometimes people think Pastor Emmanuel is indomitable, but they never ask me for the source of my indomitability. And they don't understand that part of my indomitability comes from the people around me. If Pastor Harry can go through that and make it, then I'm going to. Can I tell you something, Okonkwo? There are people standing today because you're standing. There are people standing today not because they've got power to stand, but because they're watching Pastor Okonkwo standing. And if Okonkwo can stand, then I can stand. If Juwon can stand with all she's going through, I can stand. Some people are standing not because they've got the power to stand. They're persevering not because they have perseverance, but it's your own standing that makes them stand. If that woman went through that and she's still serving the Lord, then I'm going to keep serving the Lord. And that's why you don't understand what your absence does to us. You don't understand, and the same thing is true. Do you know if I fall today, a lot of people will fall? Do you know that there are people serving God today because Pastor Emmanuel is serving the Lord? I was in a church in one from the first church I attended in one from store. Pastor Bayman got caught up in adultery. This church like maybe 200 people. The moment he got caught up in adultery, 100 people left the church. Because they were standing. Because he was standing. Their perseverance is because of the people around. If, a threefold cord cord cannot be easily broken. I'm standing because you're standing. Utuchi, there are people standing because even as a single girl, you're standing. You're going through stuff, but somehow you're standing. If you owe them to stand. You owe them to stand because you're standing because you're standing. So even when I want to fall, I think I can't fall. Because if I fall, many falls. So sometimes people persevere because Pastor Harry is persevering. So the three sources of Christian perseverance is what? Prayer, prophetic word, and the people. That's how you persevere. That's how you persevere. But the second superpower is my best. Isn't it interesting that when they were 3-0 down, and the comeback began, isn't it interesting that the person who scores the first goal when they were 3-0 down was Steven Gerrard, the captain. The captain. Let me tell you, the next superpower is the superpower of leadership. You see, leadership, single women, be careful who you marry. Leadership. Many people have gone to the bad place, not because they were bad people, but because they followed bad leadership. Can the blind lead the blind? Leadership is everything. So how is it that we're about to mount a comeback? We're about to start a comeback, and the person who scores the comeback goal is the leader. Leadership. True leaders are known not by their titles, but by what they do in moments of crisis. People can talk. True leaders are known not by their title, but by what they do in moments of crisis. The true leaders of the church are known not when the church is doing well. I left for 2 years and I realized who my leaders were. I left for 2 years and I realized who my leaders were. Because it's in crisis that leaders rise up. We're 3-0 down. And Steve Gerrard, he was wearing the captain band before then. But when he scored that goal, he declared to the whole world that I'm a true captain. I'm a true leader. Because leaders are known not what they do when the going is good, when the going is nice. True leaders rise in moments of crisis. You see, there's been this debate about whether leaders are born or made. You know, I'm in leadership. We've debated that. Some people say leaders are born. Right? So that means you were born a leader. Sometimes I really don't believe that anymore. Some people say leaders are made. Okay. Some people, people come and a leader can forge and make you a leader. Well, can I tell you the thought leaders that you're going to see? So people say leaders are born. Other people say leaders are made. Pastor Emmanuel says leaders are summoned. They are summoned by crisis. When crisis happen, the people who rise up in that crisis become what? Become leaders. Because the true test of leadership is crisis. You want to know whether you're married to a great man? Let the family enter crisis. Let the family enter crisis. I went back to England for 2 years. I was not earning a kobo. I wasn't earning a kobo. Your naira, let me tell you, your naira is rubbish, show. Your naira is rubbish. Be honest, your naira is rubbish. Don't go tell them to come and arrest me. But your naira is rubbish. If you're making naira and paying bills in pounds, you didn't realize how rubbish you are. So what then happened in my house? I'm trying to get back to tech. And my wife was taking care of business. At that moment, Sister Anna rose up and became a matriarch in my life. A matriarch in my keep reading, don't worry. Even paid for some of my exams. Paid for some, that Power BI, I paid for it. In that moment, she became a leader in my house. Leadership is not what you do when the going is good. Everybody will claim to be a leader in a church when all is going well. But wait till the church enters crisis and the real leaders with a man. One time Jesus was preaching. One day Jesus had finished preaching and shared bread and fish, and the thousands gathered. Then the thousands of people came the next day, and Jesus began to preach some hard sermons. Jesus began to say, "You're going to eat my flesh." Oh my days, eat your flesh. And I see that was not enough. Jesus said, "You're going to drink my blood." That's hardship. That's hard time. And by the time he hadn't even finished preaching that sermon, you know what happened? People began to leave. And then what happened? He turns around. Who did he see? The 12. The 12 who had eat my flesh and stayed, who had drink my blood and stayed, because leaders are known for what they do in moments of hardship. And then he turned around and he asked them, he said, "Aren't you going to leave?" Peter said, "Where would we go? Where would we go?" Leaders. So I'm not surprised at Steve Gerrard. 3-0 down, he's the one that scores. If you're going to make it out of a bad situation, ask God. You see, when you pray for money, please pray for leaders. Say, "God, put me under a good leader." Single people, you know, you want to marry a guy, and my problem with a lot of single ladies, Christians, I worry about you guys. I worry about you guys. Let me tell you what single women who are Christians do. When it comes to going to school, they apply their faith. When it comes to getting a job, "Oh God, God, give me a job that will glorify you." When it comes to learning a trade, "Oh God, give me." When it then comes to the most important decision of their life, they throw away their faith. I like him. I like him. Look at his shoe. His shoe is, I swear to God, the shoe is, I swear to God, kind of shoe. That's why you are going to follow this man. Pastor, you haven't seen him. He's six-pack. That's why you're going to follow him. Have you ever asked, "Can this man lead me?" Because where you end up in life depends on who is leading you. If Stephen Gerrard was not in that team, if Steve Gerrard was not a proper leader, if Steve Gerrard at the end of first half said, "You know, guys, damage limitation. Let's make sure it's not 5-0. That could be a leader. Say, "Guys, we're not going to win, but let's not be disgraced. Let's just make sure it's not 10-0. Yeah, let's make sure they don't disgrace us. Everybody just stay behind the ball." If you had that kind of leader, you see, you can only go as far as your leadership. John C. Maxwell. Everything starts, rises, and falls on leadership. So I'm not surprised that the person who started the comeback was the leader. Someone said, an army of lambs led by a lion will defeat an army of lions led by a lamb. Oh, did you hear me say that? An army of lambs led by one lion will defeat an army of lions led by a lamb. Leadership is everything. Single women, can he lead you? Can he lead you spiritually? Can he lead you closer to God? Can he lead you closer to Paul? It's not just that he's wearing, I swear to God, shoes and you're following him. Can he lead you? Leadership is everything. The moment Steve Gerrard, the leader, rose up in crisis, every other person said, "We can do this." When leaders rise up, everybody says we can do this. So 12 spies sent to the promised land to go spy up the land. They get there, 12 of them. Man, they see the giants. They say the sons of Anakims. They've been sent. I think it was Moses who sent them to go spy the land. If Moses even said, "Listen, bring us back some foods." They came back. 10 of the 12 said, we can't do this. He said the people we saw in that land they were giants. They said we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. So when I read that text, I'm thinking, how did you go into their eyes? He said we looked like grasshoppers in their eyes. Why did Israel occupy that land today? Because two leaders rose up and said, we are able to go up and take the country, to possess the land from the Jordan to the sea. Even though the giants may be on our way to hinder, God will surely give us. That's what leaders do. That's what leaders do. That's what leaders do. So you want to follow? Find a leader. You want to marry? Find a leader. You want a wife? Find a leader. In fact, you can only go to the extent of your leadership. Because if the blind lead the blind leading the blind. So you want to make a decision in life? Find the leader. So Steve Gerrard scores that goal, and the team is on its way to victory. Because the second superpower of success is the superpower of leadership. Pastor Harry, there are a lot of things today that you enjoy today, not because of you, but because of your leadership. The Bible says the anointing flows on. It goes first on the top of Aaron, and then it starts flowing down. So single women, I don't know what I'm going to you. That man you're marrying. Single men, that woman you're marrying. That pastor that's leading you. What surprises me is that folks will come to this church, find pastors who serve them, pastors who look after them. Listen, never slept with a woman in this church. I boast about it. I don't even carry single ladies in my car. Ask them. I don't. But you are ready to go to another place, and you don't mind if you're being taken advantage of. You play with leadership. God gives you a leader that loves you, a leader that is your father, and you don't care. Because you don't understand how important leadership is. Somebody, listen, let me say this. You can never go beyond leadership. So when you're praying, God give me money, God give me this, God give me that, please pray and say, God give me good leadership. So the second superpower is the superpower of what? Of leadership. Superpower of what? Leadership. I need to hurry up. My time's almost gone. Here's the third one. Oh my God, this is almost my best. Pastor Dixon, it's impossible to score 3 goals at the same time. So we're 3-0 down, right? The way it works is that if you're going to do a comeback, you go from 3-0 down to 3-1. Then you go from 3-1 to 3-2. This is not basketball. You're not going to score 3 goals in one at the same time. So the next superpower is the superpower of progression. Progression is the superpower of progression. You know, somebody who's calling a pastor when it's church. You know, there must be someone who doesn't go to church. Tell him, you can answer, say, go to church. You should be in church, whoever that person is. I should have switched my phone off. Listen, that miracle did not happen by revolution. That miracle, are you listening to me, someone? That miracle did not happen by revolution. That miracle happened by evolution. In fact, God's way is often evolution than revolution. No, every now and then God will do revolution. Blind Bartimaeus, boom, healed. The Syrophoenician woman, boom, healed. Lazarus, boom, healed. But that's it. Most times, God is into evolution. Creation was evolution. Day 1. Wow, it's good. Day 2. Okay, good. Day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. If you are going to be successful, you have to leverage progression. That's how God works. Progression. And that's why a lot of single ladies are in trouble. Instead of finding a man that they could build with, they'll go and find a devil who's already made that they will die in. I'm not prepared to build. When my wife met me, my wife reminds me of Clayton where I used to live. She said, in my house, your house was so dirty. She said, when I came to that house, this is London, no, this is not Okonkwo. Yeah? She said that house was dirty. Dirty. I didn't have a car. I didn't have papers. I was the king of illegal immigrants. If if they had Illegal Immigrants Association of London, they would have made me chairman automatically. No voting. Nobody. There's no. You're doing election. I was so illegal that the E in illegal was 10 E's. Illegal. That's how illegal I was. But she said, when I saw you, I saw purpose. She said, when I saw you, I said, this guy is going somewhere. He's going somewhere. The miracles of God often don't happen in one instant. God is a builder. And you have to learn to leverage on progression. Look at what the Bible says in Mark chapter 4 verse 28. Put Mark 4 28 so we can all read it. I know my time's gone. Give me like 5 minutes. Look at it. Look at God's law. Let's read it together. I want to ready to go. The earth produces by itself. First the what? Hold on. First the blade. This is how a corn comes. Corn that we eat. First thing that happens is the blade. The blade. It's not a corn at the same time. It's the blade. And then what? Then the full grain. In that blade, the grains appear. And then, and then the full. So first the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the air. But when the grain is ripe, at once he puts his sickle down. So this is a lot of progression. So what happened? 3-1. Then 3-2. You have to learn to appreciate the small wins. Stop waiting for appreciate the small victories. Michelle, that small victories. You do one program, it works. You thank God for it. People need to appreciate what God is doing on the way to where they're going. Problem where a lot of Christians are depressed is that you want it all in one go. Oh no, God doesn't do it all in one go. It is progression. It is evolution rather than revolution. So 3-1, then 3-2, then 3-3, and then we go into penalties and we win. That's how God works. So the next superpower we get from that football is that if you're going to make it in God, you better leverage on the superpower of progression. Gideon, that's how God works. He said this generation is this generation of magic. Why have I had problems ministering in Nigeria? Because people want Pastor Emmanuel to be a magician. You want to come to my church and I pick up the microphone and say, hey, Okonkwo is wearing a red pant. He's wearing a red pant. It's a red pant he's wearing. Oh, that's what you like. A red pant. He's wearing a red pant. Let me ask you, what is God doing with your pant? What is that? No, tell me. What is God? Tell me, why should you tell me the color of my pants? I like to know. What is a generation, it's magicians. Every boom, red pant, is green brown. What are you even looking at? What is that? That's why I've struggled in Nigeria. That's why, because I'm not a magician. I'm not a magician, and I have not taught you magic. I've taught you progression. What me and my wife have today, we built. Oh, we've had problems, devils fought also. Devils fought also. There's times when we thought about quit, But you know what? We kept building. When I married my wife, they said she couldn't have babies. She had polycystic ovarian syndrome. In fact, I hadn't even married her yet. We're just dating. Goes to the hospital. I said, what did they say? She said, I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. What does that mean? What does that mean? They said, I'm not going to have babies. And then she goes to her mom and tells her mom that I told my boyfriend the result. And the mama, I like mama. Mama said, you're a very stupid woman. You're very stupid. You are very stupid. You told him. And then I said, let me go and pray about it. Yeah? And I meet her the next day. I got on confirmation. I said, not a problem. Today we have four children. My son is about to go to my Gabriel is in the top 10 universities in England. Top 10 universities in England. Jahaz is planning to go to Cambridge. Right? It didn't happen in one go. It was by evolution. Gerard scores 3-1. Alonso scores, another person scores. That's how God works. For magicians who are looking for magic, Cornerstone is not for you. Go somewhere else. You got your magician pastors. If you're in this church, it's progression. I teach you how to build. Because that's how creation was progression. Day 1, he did this. Day 2, he did this. Day 3, he did this. Single women, find a man you could build with. Find a man you could build with. My wife gave me British citizenship. Yeah. She gave me British citizenship. Right? She brought something to the table. And don't be telling me you're the table. You're not the table. You are not the table. Let me listen. Come next week. I'm teaching. I'm answering 5 questions on relationship. One of the 5th one is you're not the table. Say, listen, you're telling us to bring something to the table. You're not the table. If you're the table, I'll change table. I'll just go. You're not the table. Because if you keep this, you're the table. I'll go and buy another table. There's table out there. You bring something to the table. We build together. Gerard scores 3-1, 3-2, and 3-3. Because God's method is evolution, not revolution. What's the 4th and the final one? What's the 4th and the final superpower? Was it only Gerard that won that game? Gerard scores. You know what kills the church? What kills a marriage is when you leave the burden on one person. You let your pastor burn out, it's a crime. Even when your pastor is trying to do something that he shouldn't be doing, stop him. Say, Pastor, you shouldn't be doing that. And don't say you shouldn't be doing that. And when you say you shouldn't be doing that, volunteer yourself too. When your husband is over laboring, stop him. He scores the first goal. I think he's who? Smith scores the second goal. Alonso scores the 3rd goal. That's how it works. These single women these days who say they're the table, and they don't understand that it's a partnership. Somebody said it's not 50-50. Listen, it's not 50-50. It is 100. Let me tell you what it is. The day Harry's in a situation where he's bringing 20, Thomason brings 80. The day Thomason can only bring 20, Pastor Harry brings 80. Don't come here and say, oh no, it is. I'm not in London today. My wife is doing my job. She's doing what I should be doing. When I'm in London, when she's not well, I do. There are times I've cooked for my family. You bring this your Nigerian mentality. The woman is dying, and she must cook again. No. If you are a 10 today, I'm going to be a 90 today. When I'm a 10, also I expect you to be. When I'm looking for work and I'm a 0, you be 100 too. That's how it works. It's not Steven Gerrard that should score the 3 goals. It's a teamwork. It's partnership. It's not the pastor. It's not the pastorate. It's everyone. It's the deacons, the deaconess. If things are going to go well in anything you're doing, you must leverage the superpower of partnership. The Trinity is a partnership. Sing that. Can somebody help me sing this song? I know they walk alone. Can we all stand up as we end with this song? What we got aside, 3 of them join. I know they walk alone. Sing it again.